years ago, when in school, still trying to find some light with regard to where the truth might be with regard to the faith, I went on a regular basis to the Central Library in the city where we were living, Cardiff, and found on the open shelves the various volumes of Butler's Lives of the Saints. Starting therefore at A, I found many interesting phenomena. But then eventually I came to E, and this particular saint stood out, Elizabeth. She could have passed fairly unnoticed into history. Her husband was, it seems, a strong ruler. He was king, but he was not a terribly good husband. However, they had a family, and he eventually died fairly young, and she, at that point, followed the grace that was hers and wanted to give herself entirely to prayer. She had already given her life in marriage following what had been laid out for her at the age of 12. It was only 8 years older that she had children. Then she was not allowed to enter a convent, but she followed her grace through and was specifically attached to the charism of St. Francis and of the Poor Clares. She could not enter a Poor Clare convent, even though she was able to build and found one, but she was able to become a Franciscan tertiary, and in that mode she did follow to the end the charism of Francis, but in a special way, and this was what caught my eye. The testimony about her person is actually quite interesting. She did not distinguish between contemplation of the Lord, which is very dear to the Poor Clares, specifically in its Eucharistic form, from encountering him in those who are suffering. We find this again in our time in the soon-to-be canonized Mother Teresa, who, by the way, I met when I was in school, because in those days she was just becoming known, and she came to our very large parish in Cardiff, and we were bowled over by her sense of humour and her human warmth and goodness, but that's another story. St. Elizabeth, like Mother Teresa, as it were, adored the Lord in those who were before her. Mother Teresa taught her nuns to look at the way that the priest treats the Blessed Sacrament. She only had very good priests ministering to her sisters, and her sisters were very Eucharistic in orientation. And she taught them to see the reverence with which the body of Christ was handled at the altar by the good priests, and that they were to treat those the Lord was sending them in his providence in the streets of Calcutta with that same tender reverence, for the same Lord was being touched. Now, in this saint, much earlier in time, Elizabeth, she came back from ministering with her own queenly hands to these poor people in dire misery, what would perhaps be the equivalent of the untouchables. And when she came back with the sister that was with her, she said this to her. After the sister had turned to her and said to her, and this is what caught my eye, "But Mother, hide yourself, hide your face, your skin is shining." She was in ecstatic mode, and visibly so, rather like Seraphim of Sarov, the phenomenon of illumination. Light can be seen in the face. And she answered to that remark, "We have truly met Christ today." She had truly engaged with Christ in these poor people who had not much time left on earth. But as in the case of Mother Teresa, a quality time, because she was there. That is something that applies to us. We cannot in any way give a complete cult, a complete worship to God by even the highest liturgy, if it is not done in that continuity of movement in which we are embracing mentally all around us and addressing them with that reverence with which we address the Lord. It is the test. To compartmentalize our life between vertical and horizontal is to miss the point, for it is the same Lord that we are serving. Let us remember that when the big nuisance comes our way. That is the test, when we're caught off guard. Can we cultivate that message that whoever it is who comes on the phone at the most awkward moment and at the door at the most noisome moment is Christ coming at that point, and to be addressed as such with the message that yes, you count. You are not a nuisance. I am not answering you to get rid of you. I am giving you my heart and my attention while you are there, for you are the one that God has sent me right now, and He wants me to serve Him in you. If we do that, they will pick it up. For unfortunately, much damage is done throughout the world, even in church circles, by its opposite. People who crash into a wall when they wanted warmth. People who come to a place of prayer and are rejected, where God apparently is hugely honoured.